I think they pretty much covered my part of the music of my 5 things, so I won't say anything more about that, except just awesome stuff happening at Fox River with the music, and just thank you very, very much to Mrs. Nelson once again, Mrs. Kulo and Mrs. Bergman for what they do for the building and how they represent this community. Moving on, I want to just also say, I know Mr. Yoke touched on this, but I do want to say thank you very much to Mrs. Pankowski and Mr. D for the uniforms. Tonight was the 8th graders away tonight, so we didn't get to see the uniforms. I didn't get to see the uniforms on the court, but I saw the boys getting on the bus with their uniforms, and it's really exciting that we moved into the 21st century with boys basketball uniforms as opposed to back in the 70s, maybe when I was the coach, not sure, and the past uniforms we had, so it was a monumental night at Fox River for the basketball teams. Thank you to Mrs. Pankowski and Mr. D for doing that. I do want to talk about Mr. Malthoff mentioned Mrs. Harmon a little bit, but in my building she is doing Monday Bites, which is tech sessions for the teachers, and then every other Monday she does Monday Bites for the students. So tonight it was students with help with saving. Last week she met with teachers on feedback with Google Docs. So she has a scripted thing out through the month of December of the meetings that she meets with the teachers on, and just doing a really nice job on that. So kudos to Mrs. Harmling for what she is doing with the staff on sustaining the programs and so forth. I'd like to recognize the social studies teachers tonight, and that would be Mrs. Underly, Mrs. Kurz, and Mr. Weil. They have just brought Veterans Day alive in our building. It started obviously with Mrs. Harmling, with Mrs. Nelson and Mrs. Kulo and Mrs. Bergman as we went over to the barn over here with our Monday afternoon veterans. And then a week later on the Veterans Day, we replicated the ceremony that we did over at the barn with everything. And then through the guidance of several of these students, in fact, most of these students that came tonight, they, under the direction and leadership of Mrs. G, who is the Talented Gifted Coordinator in the district, they worked very hard on orchestrating the entire day and the assembly. I didn't do anything that day. It was student-driven. And what the goal is to present things about the honor flight, which is what they were learning about in their social studies classes. And it's some program we started last year, and then we have just grown with it in the 7th grade. The 8th graders then with the students led it, and these students orchestrated a Clash for Coins, and the goal was to be able to send 2 veterans on the honor flight this year. I know the results, but I don't want to say it right now because I want it to be a surprise tomorrow. I will tell you, students, we did exceed our 2 veterans to send, and I'll update you, and Mr. Yoke can update you, but when you hear the number we're going to be sending, it's just amazing what the students collected each day. We collected coins and silver, and they clashed it. We've had families email us thanking us and for what we're doing. We just had an outpour from the parents of the building of what they wanted to donate. We had a family donate this honor flight book to the library, which is, you can take a look at it after the board meeting. We've had parents we had one parent send a $500 check from the family to send a veteran. It's just the commitment that what the students have done about learning about Veterans Day and the honor flight, and the impact that those 3 social studies teachers have made in the lives of these young kids of not forgetting veterans and what Veterans Day is about. So kudos out to those people. For our ceremony, we had a board member from the honor flight over there to talk to the students about what it means to be a veteran. We had Runsheimer of the Orville, who is the main person in the documentary. His daughter, who works at Runsheimer, came and spoke to the students at the assembly, and then Runsheimer International donated a sugar cookie, a red, white, blue sugar cookie to every student that day. As they left the assembly, they received a sugar cookie on behalf of Runsheimer. So once again, just the connections that the community has made due to what they're learning in social studies. I'd like to say thank you to Mrs. Hackstein, who works with the at-risk students. She's worked with Evergreens, and we send our students over to reading buddies with the elementary students, and with the help of Mrs. Harmling and Mr. Maltoff, we have our bi-monthly where our 8th graders and 7th graders rotate over and work with the students, early childhood, kindergarten students over here reading. So kudos to Mrs. Hackstein for orchestrating that. I also want to say kudos to Mr. Bohr and Mrs. Rather. After we finished our WKCE testing, we have a half a day, and they orchestrated a huge post-test activity analysis of students analyzed how production stays faithful or departs from the literary text, which is a Common Core standard we need to be working on. So they orchestrated an entire activity for the afternoon for the 8th grade students to put together through some viewing and some writing. And then when the 7th graders had their half a day, kudos to the 7th grade teachers, along with the help of Mrs. Harmling, we put together a tech rotation, which we always do about a quarter of the way through the year right now, where we need to just reboot with our 7th graders to make sure we're all doing the one-on-one the way that we expect it to be done. So rotations took place after we were done with WKC testing on both of those areas. So I think that is a brief outline of what's happening at the middle school. Any questions for me?
Just like to say, after being at that place, to think that those are just 7th, 8th graders was fantastic, and kudos to the people that put it on.
Yes, thank you, and I'll relay that exactly. It just was, yeah. It was exciting because this year was Alice in Wonderland, which was kind of geared towards elementary, and the Friday night performance especially. There were so many little kids of the community here. It's my understanding there were birthday parties and there were Girl Scouts from the elementary buildings and some Cub Scouts, and just seeing all these little kids running up to all my 7th and 8th graders like, you know, they were just big, tall people, and went, oh, I want to be that when I grow up, and just touching the, you know, the Twiddle-Dee and Twiddle-Doo uniforms, and it was just awesome to see those little kids, you know, because they're little and they're dreaming of the day they can be that, and I just thought it was just an awesome experience for our entire district to make a connection with the elementary buildings with that, so, yeah.
Well, thank you, administrators and principals, for such stimulating and uplifting reports. It's a thrill.